Hey there, YouTubers. Right, so it's been a while since I've even talked about 300 series motherboards on the channel. We've kind of moved on to 400, whether it be AMD stuff or um, Intel's 10th gen, mainly Intel's 10th gen. But you can see from this little snippet that I did have quite a few popular videos related to 300 series motherboards. So, um, rather than neglect you guys, I thought, hey, I should make another video talk about how things are today. Okay, so there are so many 300 series motherboards you could buy. The original H310, the B360, the H370, and the Z370. Okay, all of those motherboards, if you were to buy them today brand new, there's a very high percentage chance that they would have a BIOS that's updated to support 9th gen. Now, sometimes you can get some old stock, and that is not the case. And when that happens, you're going to need an 8th gen CPU. Cheapest one to buy is, say, a Celeron G4900. Okay, that is the cheapest route to go. If you happen to slap your computer together, and guess what, you get a black screen, or maybe if you have easy debug, the CPU lights flashing. Um, for whatever reason, the BIOS is not noticing this. Other situations, that CPU may get slightly recognized where it does boot up, but the computer has no idea what the CPU is. In that case, you could still do the BIOS update with the CPU installed. That's only happened like, I think that's happened to me once, maybe twice, where I was like, wow, what is this? It doesn't totally recognize it, but it's working. Um, okay, so those motherboards, you know, there's some things you can do, and trying to find a good example for y'all wasn't so great. But this is a Z370, and basically you've got to find out what version, what revision of BIOS it is actually shipping with. Okay, and depending on the CPU you bought, you should be good with some of the earlier BIOS updates. You see 9th gen here, upcoming CPU. Some of these, though, later on there was an update for an i9 9900KS. So if you were thinking about that, uh, gosh, you will need one of the highest number of BIOS for that. Now, motherboards like the B365M, this guy was brought out basically. Really, it was the 360 in my opinion, updated and turned into an 8th and 9th gen. Okay, so you should be good buying something like this right out off the bat. And if you go into support, it may say it added additional functionality for other 9th gens. And we'll see if we can find an example. Yeah, so, you know, originally when this came out in 2019, it was good. They added at least one that I know of, 9th gen, and that is basically the only update they've made. So if you get this with an F3, you should be pretty solid for everything. Okay. Now, H310M 2.0. If you buy this guy, this is also meant for 8th and 9th gen. If you're able to find out that it got basically right off the bat, it's going to support your i3s, your i5s, your i7s. It's just that one i9 out there. If you were for whatever reason going to buy that and put it in this crappy motherboard, I don't know why you do that, but so you see, this one actually went straight from F2 to F10, um, which I find kind of funny. Like, this is really just the H310M, the original one, um, with a BIOS update. That's what I get out of this, folks. So you see F10, optimized. So somewhere in here they added some 9th gen CPUs that weren't originally covered. Now, Z370s, this is the same deal here. And if you bought one of these early on, you're not covered, okay? It isn't until you get to F10 that there's some coverage for, say, an i3 9100, an i5 9600K, and those CPUs. Later on, they added more, and basically it covered all the 9th gen all the way up to the i9 9900KS. And so to double check that, you click on CPU support. So here's another way to look at this. This is probably something I should have talked about sooner. You see this right column over here? This is telling you since what BIOS version has it supported a certain CPU. So if I were to buy, let's see what's in here. Well, if you bought it originally, it had an i3-8100. It was good from the F2. If you decided for whatever reason I want to jump up to an i3-9100F, because those are really cheap to buy, and it's going to be faster, if I can even find it. Looks like I've shot over it. There it is. That one, it wasn't good until F12 revision, okay? So you would definitely need to update that BIOS before you moved on to 9th gen. Now, every one of these is covered after F12, even the 9900KS, all right? So that is the Z370. And actually, so that's that one. Now, if we do the same with the H310M, looking at the support list, just to give you another example. Gee, where is the support list for CPUs? It's over here, sorry. CPU support. With these guys, you mainly see, you see a lot of F2s, but then you see some later Pentiums, which, who wants that crap? And then some of the later 9th gen chips. Now, I believe some of these 9th gen chips would have worked earlier. It's just, optimizing them. But so this kind of tells you, this is H310M 2.0. There was obviously a 1.0. That this is pretty much the same motherboard, and it wasn't until they threw in that BIOS update that got it up to 9th gen, and then repackaged it that it was safe. So something like this motherboard would be safe for you to buy. Okay. Now, things you can do to figure out if you're going to buy a new 300 series motherboard. And this example didn't work out too good, so let's actually maybe this one will work out good. What I like to show you is how you can search. You can search in a couple places. One, in the reviews for BIOS to figure out what they're shipping with, and you'd have to read through this. This example doesn't work too good, but let's go to different motherboard. So this was an original cheap one. And it says it supports 8th and 9th. So that's good. You see that on here? That means they're shipping with updated ones, okay? So if we go, I went back to that. We look at the questions, we type in BIOS. Does it support 9th gen CPUs out of the box, or do you have to update the BIOS? Yes, it supports. So this, these are the kind of questions you want to see. And if you see multiples, usually that means it's good to go. What's even better is when they tell you, somebody asks, what is the current BIOS that it ships with? And then if you find that answer out, then you go back to the site. So this was an MSI H310. Pro Series. I think that's the same one, folks. That's Amazon. This should be the right one. Okay. So from here, same thing. We would click on support. And their setup's a little bit different. You got to come over here to compatibility, CPU, and actually we're looking at CPU. So this actually shows you the BIOS, the name BIOS. And to make sense out of this, we probably need to back up a step, but here are all the CPUs that will work with this, okay? You have to take, I would write this down if you have a CPU in here that you care about. Write that down, and then when you come back over to the actual BIOS files. So unlike Gigabyte, these guys, I don't know if they're lazy, but they didn't really do us any favors. This is basically your revision here: 19, 18, 17, 16. This is how you tell which one it works with, okay? So the 13, I think the last one I looked at was 13. You see supports the latest 9th gen. And as long as you got one of these that's, that was a long time ago, right? So if you bought that, you should be good to go. Or if you bought one after that, by say 6 months, it's usually pretty good. Now, what else should we look at, folks? Here's a B365. That's going to do it. Thanks for checking out the video. Please like, please subscribe. Thank you.